Gordon Dalgleish again this morning. Delighted to have with me Simon Newland, Secretary of Royal Liverpool Golf Club. Good morning, Simon.
Morning, Gordon. How are you?
I am doing terrific. Really appreciate you finding some time here to talk with us about Royal Liverpool. But before we get into Royal Liverpool, I've been very fortunate in the golf business for 30 some years. Always curious how you ended up, or people end up in their different jobs. And Royal Liverpool, clearly a very prestigious position as secretary. How did you find your career path to there?
Good question. We, like many of my peers, I guess, of my generation, I fell into this game as a second career. In the first instance, I spent 16 years working for Barclays straight after I left school, and started as an office junior working for Barclays in a local branch in Liverpool, and finished as an IT project manager in my early 30s, and then fell into this game almost by accident. And Royal Liverpool Golf Club is my third position in what is now almost 18 years, and I've been fortunate enough to work at Royal Liverpool Golf Club since the end of 2014. Prior to that, I was at Hillside Golf Club, not too far away on England's Gulf Coast. And prior to that, I started my golf club career at Preston Golf Club in Lancashire. So I'm very, very fortunate. I've made my way through by hook or by crook, but certainly with a lot of luck, that's for sure. And no, I've been here since the end of 2014. It's a great place to work.
I'm sure it is, and Hillside certainly is also a terrific golf course in your area. So you've been around some good stuff. Now,
I was at Hillside for nearly 8 years, and it was a great place to work. It's a lovely club, lovely people, fantastic links. Fortunate enough to host the Amateur Championship in 2011. That was a marvellous occasion to celebrate the club's centenary at Hillside. So yes, I'm very fortunate. I seem to have found myself in the right place at the right time on a couple of occasions now.
That is just the way it should be. Now, I mean, and Hillside is one of these, actually a great example of a club in the British Isles, which is a terrific golf course, but just doesn't always make it onto the radar for inbound visitors. And it's to the visitors' loss that they don't get to see Hillside and experience it. But there are, as you know, there's so many fine courses in the British Isles. Now, focusing on Royal Liverpool, I mean, it's, you know, when you kind of go through the history books, there's very few aspects of the history books in Britain and golf that Royal Liverpool does not have its fingers in the pie of somewhere along the lines. I noticed that was your 150th celebration 2 years ago.
That's right, 2019.
I'm sure you were very pleased that you managed to enjoy 2019 and not be caught up in the pandemic and having to run it all, or try to run your events virtually. But you know, 150 years is terrific for any golf course. So going in, when I read through the impact of the various that you've had on the game of golf, the amateur, was the amateur or the precursor to the amateur that really started at Royal Liverpool?
That's right. One of my esteemed predecessors, Thomas Owen Potter, who was the first secretary of the club, there's a picture of him on the wall in my office here. That's where I'm looking up there. He came up with the notion, the idea of the club should stage a competition that was open to all amateur golfers of the day, and the idea took a couple of goes around the committee of the day, and in 1885, the first open competition for amateur golfers was held here at Hoylake, and it was considered a success. And St Andrews took it on in 1886, and 23 clubs around the British Isles at the time then subscribed to the cost of what's possibly still the finest trophy in the game of golf, certainly in the game of amateur golf. And those 23 clubs came together and funded the cost of the trophy, which was first presented in 1886 at St Andrews, and that was the amateur championship, and it's been played ever since. Fantastic representation of the finest amateur golf. The finest amateur golfers in the world come together, and Hoylake, we can't wait to host it again. It's 2000 since the last time Hoylake hosted it, and we can't wait to host it again.
I'm sure. And then in the same vein, the home internationals. Was that also a Royal Liverpool?
Not quite the home internationals, but it's certainly the forerunner to the home internationals. I think Royal Liverpool has benefited from having great people in the Victorian era who came up with fantastic ideas, and it seems to me that at that particular point in time, it was very much reliant on the senior clubs, let's call them, in the UK at the time, coming together with creating ideas and relying on each other to take the ideas forward. And then obviously since then the golfing authorities have stepped in and taken over the running of these things. But definitely the concept came out of Royal Liverpool Golf Club in 1902 for an international match between teams from England and Scotland. The one thing that fascinates me about that is that the idea in 1902 was so popular. 3,000 spectators came to watch. We had a new railway connection between Hoylake town just down the road and Liverpool city centre. They had to put special trains on to bring all of those spectators out here. One can only marvel at how popular the game was at that particular point, and these initiatives were. So yes, that was 1902, and then Muirfield, the Honourable Company, thankfully took that on in 1903, and the notion of the match grew organically thereafter, and it is now the home internationals between all the nations, which is it's a really popular
Sure.
Staging ground for the young amateur to find his way through beyond there, hopefully into the Walker Cup team, then hopefully into professional ranks.
You know, and your history is so interwoven with amateur golf, and then the final part of the trifecta, for want of a better description, the Royal Liverpool was the venue for the precursor to the Walker Cup.
Well, again, that's born of a simple idea at the club, 1921, and it was a year that Hoylake was hosting the amateur championship, and there was a contingent coming from the US to spend the summer in the UK competing in the amateur championship, in the Open Championship, and the notion was posed: let's have a match between the US amateurs, as they're here for the amateur championship anyway. Let's have a match between the US amateurs and the Great British and Islander amateurs, and that was a huge success. Although the record books will tell you that the US team gave the GB&I team a good thumping over the Hoylake links net. But what was beautiful is that the United States Golf Association then took the idea on and invited, the following year in 1922, invited a team from Great Britain and Ireland to come to America and compete for what was then the Walker Cup, because Mr. Walker at that point had kindly donated possibly the largest trophy in golf, and there was born the Walker Cup. It is it's nice to know that idea was born out of a simple notion here at Royal Liverpool Golf Club.
And in the same vein, it's so it's so coincidental, but it's so appropriate that Bobby Jones in the Grand Slam 1930, Royal Liverpool once again.
Our relationship, or this club's relationship with Bobby Jones, is quite remarkable and quite extensive. Of course, he was part of that 1921 US team of amateurs to play in the precursor to the Walker Cup. He and his and 8 of the US amateurs had travelled over for the summer to compete. They travelled to compete in the amateur championship, and he then came back in 1930 as the finest golfer of his era, of his generation, in that particular year, and swept all before him. Picked up the Open Championship here and the Amateur Championship at St Andrews, and capped it off with a US Amateur and a US Open win in the States at Merion and Interlaken, respectively. So let's hope that in 2030,
yes,
we can all come together. The golfing authorities can all come together, and by God, it'll be one hell of a celebration that year if we can do it.
Absolutely. I've heard some rumors, certainly in the United States, about that idea, and it would be fabulous. And then you had the Walker Cup in '83, when a fella that I knew from my days in Scotland, Charlie Green, was the captain, and then of the Great Britain and Ireland team, and Charlie was quite the amateur golfer. And then in 2019, you had the Walker Cup again, just 18 months ago.
Indeed, and the Walker Cup in 2019 was a real culmination of celebratory events for the club in its 150th year, and it was a super week. The first time I'd been exposed to the planning and the delivery of something quite on that scale. The R&A and the USGA do a fantastic job, and it was a pleasure to be involved with. When the US team landed, or both teams landed earlier in the week, the weather was absolutely shocking. Practice started on the Monday morning, howling gales, horizontal rain. It was awful early September weather here on England's Gulf Coast, and we thought, okay, this is going to play into our hands. The GBI team are going to really rally this week. The US lads will never have experienced anything like this. And then we woke on Saturday morning for the first match, and it was beautiful blue sky and beautiful still weekend. The weekend weather was fabulous. GB&I team were in control on the Saturday, but when it came to the singles on Sunday afternoon, the US team showed its teeth, showed its class, and the boys really laid down a challenge to the GB&I team and walked away with it in the end. But what was fascinating, and one of the interesting links that we have, is that Nathaniel Crosby was the captain of the US team in 2019. But of course, it wasn't his first time at Hoylake. He'd been at Hoylake in 1983 as a team member for the Walker Cup. We have he has a nice relationship with Hoylake, and it was lovely to see him back.
That's terrific. So moving forward to the Open, I mean, the winners of the Open at Hoylake are truly, I mean, it's just, McIlroy, Woods, Fred Daly, Walter Hagen, Peter Thomson. I mean, it's all world. When I was kind of doing my research, it speaks to how much the Open has changed in 1967, when Roberto de Vicenzo won it, he won £2,100. And then what's that? 40 years later with Woods, he won £720,000. I didn't realize that inflation was quite as much as that. But you've got the Open coming up in 23.
23 now, yes. It was due to be next year,
Yep.
22, but as with much of the world, everything's been delayed by 12 months. So we're now fortunate to have the Open Championship return in 2023, and we're really looking forward to that. But the Open Championship and Royal Liverpool Golf Club, the links here at Hoylake, have a very long and illustrious history. And as you say, some of the winners. Well, I don't know what it is about the links at Hoylake. It seems to bring out the best in the world's best golfer at the time. And
Yep.
If you think about Woods, he was world number one at the time. If you think about McIlroy, he was world number one at the time. Peter Thomson, when he won here in 1956, that was his third Open Championship in succession, and he and De Vicenzo, particularly in the modern era, they were held in very high regard at Hoylake. Indeed, as Jones was an honorary member at Royal Liverpool, as was Peter Thomson, and as was De Vicenzo. Indeed, when the Open returned to Hoylake after 39 years in 2006, Peter Thomson was invited to the club for a lovely celebratory lunch with his wife at the club, and by all accounts, everybody enjoyed themselves celebrating 50 years since Thomson's win here in 1956. And, that was a really nice touch. So it was, yeah, it's a great relationship. We're really looking forward to 2023, whatever it may bring. And
Yep.
Long may the relationship continue.
That's terrific. Now, speak for a moment, because every club is so different in terms of the ambience and the membership and some of the traditions that you have. Speak for that to that for a second, if you would, just about the makeup of your membership and just some of the fun things, neat things that a visitor might not notice or expect from somewhere like Royal Liverpool.
Sure. I guess when one sits or stands outside on the road looking at the clubhouse from outside the gate, it looks really quite a foreboding place. It's a Victorian red brick building from 1895. It's a fabulous clubhouse from the outside, and I guess it looks a wee bit foreboding. One of the things that we pride ourselves in, though, is that when our guests arrive at Royal Liverpool Golf Club and they find themselves within that building, that they receive the warmest welcome possible, and that they're treated as members for the day. And that's really quite important to us. Our membership is drawn from all over the world, and our local membership is drawn from wide-ranging backgrounds, socio-economic groups. It's a very broad brush membership, which is it lends itself to a very sociable place, a warm mix of people, and I'm very fortunate to work here. That make me and all the staff that make us feel very welcome, and it's a pleasure to serve them.
Yes, and I think that often is one of the things that so helps define British clubs, different from other parts of the world, where it's a wider kind of cross section of the society that participates. So as a result, it's maybe a friendlier atmosphere. Nobody's trying to outdo the next person, because everybody kind of checks their ego at the door, if you will, and it's about the people and the characters that are there.
Well, one of the fascinating things that you talk about checking the ego at the door. Private clubs in the UK, golf clubs in particular, one can drive into the car park, for example, and they can see there's a spot reserved for the captain, there's a spot reserved for the president, there's a spot reserved for the secretary, even, the parking spots, and you won't find that here at Hoylake. When everybody is within the confines of their club, everybody is treated the same. There's no reserved parking spots. The only honours board that you'll find in the clubhouse at the golf club is the major winners honours board. So unless you've won the Open Championship or the Amateur Championship or the Women's British Open, or participated in the Walker Cup or the Home Internationals, whatever it may be, that's the only way to get your name on the winners board at the Royal Liverpool Golf Club. And yeah, it's a lovely level playing field as a result of it.
Yep, that's terrific. So let's talk about the golf course for a second. The original architect was Tom Morris's brother. He was one of the two that designed the golf course?
Correct. Right. So the golf course was, believe it or not, the land that the golf course sits on was originally home to Liverpool Hunt Club, and it was a race course. And if we go back to 1869, some local Liverpool merchants, Liverpool-based merchants, mainly of Scottish descent, we think, Gordon, as well, decided that the land would be would make a good golf course. It was free draining land. It would make a great golf course, and so George Morris and Robert Chambers were both commissioned to lay out a wee golf course on the land of Liverpool Hunt Club. 9 holes to start with, opposite the Royal Hotel on Stanley Road here in Hoylake, which served as the first clubhouse, and the golf course shared its land with horse racing for a number of years, which one can only imagine the condition of the course on a Monday morning after the race meeting the weekend before.
Yes.
But that's how it was, and the course here at Hoylake is a story of one that has grown organically over the centuries now, decades, and yes, George Morris, brother of old Tom, with Robert Chambers in the first instance. But since then, the architects that have had a hand in developing the links, we're talking Harry Colt, Hawtrey, Donald Steele, and now Martin Ebert, most recently. And yeah, it's definitely a story of a course that has grown organically, makes the best use of the land that it was laid out on. Very little in the way of major earth movements. It's not one of these new courses that is carved out of a piece of land with millions of tons of earth movement. There's none of that going on. It's a very organic course, and consequently, my opinion is that it really does appeal to the purist golfer.
The one word that you kind of oftentimes associate with Royal Liverpool is strategic. You know, you've got to think your way around the golf course. It's you got to plan. And was it Woods in 2006 that hit his driver once around? I mean, it's similar to maybe Marion in that regard, that you can't overpower the golf course.
Well, it'll be fascinating to see what the guys do in a couple of years' time, because certainly the world's finest golfers at the moment, they hit the ball so far and so hard, and your use of the word overpower, I think, is actually quite an interesting one. So it'll be fascinating to watch that from the sidelines in a couple of years' time. But you're right. It is a golf course that appeals to the purist. You don't have to plot your way around. It's beautifully laid out. The routing of the golf course is spectacular. There's barely an inch of the land that isn't used to best advantage, and the holes that are away from the foreshore and closer to the clubhouse, they're on a flatter plane of land. Perception of depth is really, really difficult. Distance control is really, really important. The land moves very subtly. You won't find huge elevated tees here with steps up to the teeing ground so that you can see the hole before you. You have to work out your route around the golf course yourself by using your own keen eye, and that's why I say I think it appeals most particularly to the purist.
For 2023, what length could they tip the golf course out at?
7,300, give or take.
Okay.
We've got, as you might imagine, we've undertaken some construction under the guidance of the RNA and Martin Ebert in the last year or so. There's a few new tees created. We've created a completely new par 3 hole on the back nine. Stretches out to about 7,300 yards, and we have a couple of par 5s now on the back nine that will play around 600 yards off the tips.
Wow. But when we talk about 7,300 yards, it doesn't really equate to the same as it might in the United States. I mean, particularly if you've got a dry summer or you've got high wind. The yardage is more just of a guidance than anything else. But it will certainly be interesting to see how they play in 2023.
Yardage is just a number, isn't it? Let's face it. Yeah. I can't imagine playing golf at 7,300 yards. That's for sure. But to these guys, distance is it's just a number, and the challenge, the true challenge of a links course, is as prevalent today as it always was, and comes down to weather, prevailing conditions.
I had the good fortune to be a starter for the Wells Fargo in 2017 when it came to our club in Wilmington, and the 10th hole's a par 3. On the Friday, the weather was not terrific, but it was very windy, and I probably started 40 of the players, and I was really amazed, Simon, at how poorly these PGA Tour guys managed the wind. There was probably only 4 or 5 of them that knew how to control a golf ball. And Retief Goosen comes to mind, where he just kind of shapes the golf ball into the wind, as opposed to standing up there and hitting it as hard as you can, and it gets up in the air and it blows around and it comes down wherever. And I think that's a skill set that has been lost by so many of the younger players. But it's sorely tested when they get to the Open.
Well, it's fascinating you say that. So many of the world's best golfers today, they find their way through the American college system, where I guess British links golf is a complete anathema in that world. Yep. But what I would say is we have a young member here called Matthew Jordan, who's been a member since he was knee high to a grasshopper. And he's turned professional in the last couple of years, and in his first year as professional competed on the Challenge Tour, and now competes on the European Tour. Matthew is a super ball striker, fabulous putter, but he has a complete grounding in links golf, being here at Royal Liverpool Golf Club, and he's able to control the ball in the wind like few others I've personally witnessed, and it'd be fascinating to see what he manages to do in 2023 if he qualifies. Let's hope he does.
Let's hope he does indeed. So, do you have some favourite holes out there of your own? at Royal Liverpool?
There's a stretch of holes right on the foreshore with some fabulous views out to Liverpool Bay and the Welsh Mountains. A stretch of holes from the 9th tees to the 15th or the new 15th green, and that's I think that's probably everybody's favourite part of the course. That's a lovely stretch of holes. But the holes that are slightly further inland, back towards the clubhouse, certainly on the old part of the race course, you can still make it out. They're some of the most challenging holes that you'll find. If you come and play the first hole at Royal Liverpool, it'll be the third hole in an Open Championship. But the first hole here for us regular golfers is a fabulous dogleg to the right, par 4. It's out of bounds on the right-hand side where the practice ground is. The putting green in the clubhouse is to your left, and the number of times I've picked a ball off the practice ground there, having not warmed up properly, is more times than I can count on one hand. Let's put it that way. And it's a really, really challenging golf course. The picturesque holes are certainly 9 through 15, but the rest of the course is a real challenge. There's some fabulous holes out there, and I think the first is probably the toughest opening drive in golf. That's for sure.
Well, it's never a good thought when your last thought is let's not hit the ball there, because invariably your wish pool comes through and you're on the.
Well, anyone who knows me and has played golf with me knows that I'm very much a show up last minute. Thrash the club around a couple of times, and then tee the ball up and let's see what happens. And invariably on the practice ground. That's a shame.
Your idea of warming up is taking the head covers off.
And try not to pull a muscle. Try not to pull a muscle out the car. Yeah.
I understand. So you touched on the visitor experience and how important it is to you that everybody's treated as a member for the day. Do you want to kind of touch on that again, or emphasize that, or some of the little service points that you focus on?
We're a private members club, and we try to draw a fine line between providing or giving our guests the best private member club experience we can, without going too far into perhaps the country club style service that people might experience in the commercial world. So our focus is on being as friendly and as warm and as welcoming as possible. And we won't force visitors to use a visitors locker room, as some clubs do. We have a great welcome in our clubhouse in the first instance with our starters and our professional team, and that hopefully will set our guests up for a great day all the way through the golf course, around the golf course, and into the clubhouse. Now, of course, we have a plethora of heritage displays in the clubhouse. Some of the silverware to be seen is amazing. The artwork and the displays around the clubhouse, and we really encourage our guests to take the time to find their way into all of the nooks and crannies of the clubhouse and see what we have to offer. It's not just a golf course; it's a whole club experience that we hope to provide to our guests.
Simon, I think you very eloquently said that there. I think the folks that miss out are the people that literally come in 15 minutes before, go to the first tee, come up, play their round of golf, they get off the 18th green, they get back in their vehicle and leave, and they never get to see and feel and experience everything that you guys that you strive to deliver for the visitor, and that's their misfortune not to do that. So I commend you for trying as hard as you do.
Well, there's a couple of places in the clubhouse where guests like to gather and look through the heritage displays. We have the head of the main staircase. We have a fabulous portrait of Bobby Jones. He sat for that in 1930 when he was here, and that hangs very proudly at the head of the staircase in the clubhouse. And we have in the main bar area, we have some great displays of the each Open Championship, winning scorecards, and imagery from all of the Open Championships. And it's everywhere. We struggle to display it all. Storage is an issue, and when one looks around the clubhouse, it's very, very difficult to spot any wall space that isn't covered with the real history of golf and the history of this golf club in particular.
Well, Simon, you've been most generous with your time today. You're a terrific ambassador for Royal Liverpool Golf Club, and like I said at the beginning, I hope some folks their takeaway is that it's a must-visit golf club in the British Isles. It's a terrific history and tradition, and very proud to sharing it with visitors. So, Simon, thank you so much for your time. I greatly appreciate it.
Gordon, thank you very much for inviting me. It's I've watched a few of your broadcasts now with interest. I won't say, yeah, I was slightly nervous today. That some of the interviews that have gone before have been really interesting and really fascinating, and I hope I've just added to that. Thank you very much indeed for your time.
My pleasure. Have a great day. Take care.
You, all the best. Thank you now.